Good morning, watch nerds. I recently decided a certain watch in my collection needed moving on, which in turn left me with a gap in my watch box. It almost goes without saying that this is one of the greatest sins, so I got myself on eBay. After some searching, this appeared, the Dryden Heartlander. Not only had I never heard of the watch, I wasn't familiar with the brand. I did some research and discovered Dryden is a Kansas City based micro brand from the good old US of A, and it was started by a guy called Jerry Wang. The watches are screwed together and regulated in-house. I then read the spec sheet and decided this could be the watch for me. I made a reasonable offer, and within a short period of time the deal was done. But I'll get to the money side of things later. I'll start by telling you before I go any further though, that the aesthetics of this watch may not knock you off your feet, but the quality and finish of the timepiece really is very good. So keep watching. And welcome to my unpaid and unsponsored review of the Dryden Heartlander. The Heartlander has two dial configurations in various colours, whilst my only 50 of each option were produced. I'll leave a link to their site below, but note, not all options are still available. That's of November 2023. The more observant of you will have noticed that this has got an Explorer style dial, but believe me, that's where any similarity to a rather famous watch ends. So I wouldn't consider this a homage, and in my opinion, it is a watch of its own. And this is the packaging the watch came in, and to be honest, it's probably the most premium I think I've ever seen. It's a zip-sided travel case. Inside there's another wallet with instructions and a 2-year warranty, and it really is very nice. And this is my watch of the day. It's the second hour Mandala with this beautiful salmon dial. So starting with the dimensions, which in my opinion are perfect for a field watch. The case is 38mm, the lug width is 20mm. The depth is a fraction over 11mm, which includes a boxed double dome sapphire with AR coating, and the lug to lug is 46mm. On this bracelet, and once adjusted to fit my 17cm wrist, it weighs about 117 grams. In my opinion, the watch wears to size, and the fact it is so slim helps make it incredibly comfortable. In fact, it's probably the most comfortable watch I've ever worn on a bracelet. Inside the heart of the watch is a regulated Miyota 9039. Which is the dateless version of the 9015, so it's nice to see Dryden decided to use the correct movement. It's a high beat movement with 42 hours of power reserve. It hacks, it hand winds, it's very reliable, and from experience I can tell you, if these are regulated correctly they can be very accurate. Now some people do moan about a noisy unidirectional rotor. Personally I've never noticed it. Now after a few days of wear this is running at about +4 seconds a day. But let's see what the Timegrapher thinks of it. There we are, that all looks perfectly acceptable. A rate of plus 9 seconds a day, a good amplitude and an acceptable beat error. I just love the crown on this watch. The knurling is a crosshatch and it's very nicely done. It's nice and large at 6.7mm, it screws down, it's signed and operates the movement without issue. Engagement isn't the silkiest I've ever known, but it never is with this particular movement. The case is almost solely satin brushed apart from a polished chamfer. This pleases me as I believe polishing on a field watch should always be kept to an absolute minimum. It should be noted that the brushing is executed to a very high standard and will put some of the more well-known brands to shame. For easy strap changes, Dryden have even included drilled lugs. It's nicely shaped and it fits beautifully to the back of my 17cm wrist. The case back is etched with a picture of a compass rose and some basic information engraved around the sides. I prefer deep engraving personally, as etching tends to get a bit grubby over time. It screws down to aid the watch's claimed 100 metres of water resistance. This one has the sunburst gunmetal dial, which after looking on the site is the one I would have chosen if I had the choice. I was especially drawn to it because of the blue second hand and script. The indices are applied and quite bold, making the watch easy to read at a glance. At the top it reads Dryden in their own specific font, and below that automatic. Above the 6 o'clock it reads Heartlander, in that blue colour I already mentioned, then the water resistance underneath that. The large hands and indices are filled with a bucket full of BGW9, and this will keep up with the majority of dive watches. It shines bright and it lasts simply hours. Now here's a loom shot. I'm so pleased Dryden decided to put a president bracelet on this watch, rather than just sticking with an oyster. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with oyster bracelets, they're just a bit boring. Now this isn't just a president bracelet though, it's a very good president bracelet. It's got solid female end links that fit perfectly to the case, and it's also got quick release spring bars. Now the brush links are separate and they articulate beautifully. Now it tapers down from 20mm to 16mm, making it extremely comfortable. Now resizing is done by removing very well engineered screw pins. Now this is one of those bracelets that you hardly notice you're wearing. I'm sure everybody wants to know how much one of these little darlings costs. Well, they aren't cheap, but at the same time they aren't expensive either, and in my opinion offer better value than some brands such as Hamilton or Seiko for example. On the website they're selling for $500, but if you live in the UK you'll have to add to that postage and duty, making the watch a little bit over £500. I was fortunate enough to pick up a used one on eBay for a little over half that, so thanks Pete. Now just a tip, don't buy a microband as an investment, because it's rarely going to pay off. So in summary, now I've described this as being the only watch you may ever need, and this is why. Well, it's tall enough to be used for such things as field sports. It's got the water resistance to allow you to go out on vacation or when swimming. And it's attractive enough and compact enough to wear in the office or on social occasions. Add to that this fantastic specification, a beautiful domed sapphire crystal, a good reliable movement, a very nice style with incredible loom, and finally, one of the nicest President's bracelets I've ever handled. I would have preferred a deeply engraved caseback and an on-the-fly adjustable clasp, but that's just nitpicking, and the best I can come up with. All in all, if you're after a dressy field watch and prepared to drift away from the mainstream brands, why not consider the Dryden Heartlander? So that brings me to the end of this review, so if you enjoyed it, click on the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, while I'm sending the lads round. Leave your comments below, and enjoy the rest of your day.